Hey guys, Walt here with TAV. We're going to do another walk around here on a truck that we've been wanting to do for quite a while now, and kind of show you guys what we're doing with the 3/4 and the 1-ton trucks. This is a 2022 F350, Ford F350. It's a Lariat trim. There's a couple different things about this truck on the inside that we'll show you here that we did for this client. But we're also going to approach the walk around just a little bit different than we have in the past in the order of what we talk about. So kind of getting started, like I said, it's a 2022 F350, 4-door, 6 3/4 foot bed, but this bed is a Bowen Customs camper bed. So we'll go from the top down this time, and we'll talk about what the truck's duties are and the reason why we're going from the top down as opposed to front to back on our walk around videos. So starting on the top, we're running the front runner roof rack, and this is the low profile rack, and it will fit in an 8-foot door, 8-foot opening, without the max tracks on there. And the antenna, the Rugged Radios antenna and the WeBoost Drive X antenna can be laid down, so it'll fit inside that 8-foot garage. So he's running 2 sets of max tracks up there. For lighting on the sides, we have independently switched Baja Designs S2 Sports in a work scene pattern, and that's a nice wide pattern, and we leave the mount just loose enough to kind of move around by hand if you want to point it somewhere different. But it gives a really good wide field of light for at camp, or if you're looking for a camp spot at night or something like that, or just negotiating a trail at night, you can switch those on independently, left to right. On the front, we have 7 LP4s. Now, those are a driving combo in amber, and the LP series light is one of my favorite lights. It does a lot for one light. You've got side lights that come out at an angle off the 2 sides of the light itself. So you've got overlapping fields of light, and the driving combo with these, it's a nice down the road light, and an amber, and the LPs have a backlight, an amber backlight to them. So a truck this big, and it's a dark colored truck, is nice to have an amber running light that's non-intrusive for oncoming traffic. But with the truck being so dark, it helps you see the truck in your rearview mirror, but you can also see it if you're approaching it in low light or any time of day. As a driver, you don't see the back lights on, but you see it as an oncoming traffic in day or night. So that's a very handy thing to have. All 7 of those lights are loomed together, and we have them on the factory switches on the ceiling of the truck. There's factory rocker switches in this truck, and we have everything run to the factory switches, with the exception of the lights on the front bumper. We'll get into that in just a second. On the back of the truck, we are running a Skinny Guy Campers, a 6.5-foot kit and caboodle package camper. So this particular camper, as you can see, sits basically right at the roof line, roof height, maybe just a little bit above the roof height. We won't go into the internals of this camper because we've done other walk-around videos in the past, and what I'm going to do special about this one is do a real-time video of setting this up so people can see how much time it actually takes to set up without speeding it up or without trying to rush through it. I'm just going to go step by step for how I've found, just for me, works in an efficient way, a nice efficient way of setting this thing up where you're ready to camp. And it'll give people a good idea. We'll do one video dedicated just to that. So with that being said, this camper is full of water right now. It's about 36 gallons of fresh water. So it is full of water. So we're probably over 2,000 pounds in the bed of the truck with the camper, the spare, and the race jack that's inside here. And you can see this truck is a 1-ton truck, and it's on a factory spring rate. Now, we did do the Carli add a pack to the factory spring pack, but this truck is going to see a lot of hauling duties too, with a very large trailer. And we have a floating airbag in this as well. So when you do load it down with all that water, you can bump, I think we put maybe 15 or 20 pounds in the airbags of air pressure to get it to sit level. And then, and it rides amazing with this. It doesn't even feel like it's carrying any weight. Honestly, it feels pretty nice. So with that weight sitting where it is, as you can see, is below the roof line of this truck, and it's sitting on the top of the bed. The bed rails, all of that weight is sitting right here on top of the bed rails. The bed that this is sitting on is the Bowen Customs camper bed. There are a couple different models of beds you can get from Bowen Customs. As you've seen, like on our Tacoma walk around, we had a topper bed with an AT on there, so it was different dimensions than this. This bed is designed specifically for the slide-in style campers. Anything from the skinny guy camper to the larger campers that typically slide into the bed of a truck. And these bedsides are taller than your typical bedside on your truck to compensate for the gap that you usually see under the overhang of those slide-in campers. But now it's all usable, lockable space, and there's a ton of storage inside this thing. It gives us a lot of really good real estate to wire in lights and run all of our own harnesses, and we've done a couple little things. We always do something specific to these beds for this client's needs, and we've got some little things that we like to do for fit and finish and usability. And I'll pop open some of these cabinets so you can kind of see what's going on here. So these are all key to like. All the locks on these are all key to like. But in here, you've got a little shelf. And this is all open all the way back. So we like to put, like C-deck, something soft in here. So if you do have something hard sitting on this, you don't hear it rattling around. You can kind of keep everything tied together to where it keeps it from bouncing and rattling around. And we also have lighting inside this. So you can just hit this little flush mount button here. And you can't see it here in the daytime, but there's an LED light that runs the entire length, and it's a nice soft light. So at night, you can really kind of see how effective that is inside the cabinet. And both cabinets on this bed have that lighting in it on both sides of the truck. The front compartment, so this is a 6 3/4 foot bed, so this is a very large compartment up front. A lot of the shorter bed trucks won't have this. Obviously, it'll stop here, where the cab is, and it'll just come up, and the cabinetry will be laid out slightly different from the wheel back. There's a lot of space in there for storage. We like the Line X. I like the Line X fenders on all of the trucks we do, just because you get rocks kicking up off the ground, and it keeps rock chips from coming up and hitting your powder coat or paint or vinyl wrap, whatever you decide to do. We just like we can take these completely off the bed and just bring them in and get them Line X'd. This is another toolbox for the back, on the back corner here, and they're tapered in really nice. So everything's kind of high and out of the way. Tons of storage on the bed. And this bed is all aluminum too. It's 1/8-inch plate aluminum and very strong, and it gives us a nice blank canvas to kind of do whatever we want to with just kind of speccing the bed out however the client needs. This is kind of a special tailgate. We have to hand fit a lot of the things that we're doing with this, trimming in and cutting in certain things to make sure everything works right with the factory cables and stuff like that. But you can also see how wide between the wheel wells this actually is compared to a factory bed. And these wheel wells are going to be far stronger than a factory bed. The beds on the Fords are aluminum, but they're very thin aluminum. If you throw something heavy in there, or you use it for heavy use, you're going to really dent the bed. But this one is extremely strong. This, you can kind of see, we've got a 37-inch spare up forward under the camper. There's a space underneath the basement of the camper here for tons of room. So there's a 37-inch spare up there. In front of the jack, we've got a Pro Eagle 3-ton jack in its mount right here, so that's kind of where it lives. And that's easy to deploy to. Just kind of roll it right out of its cradle and you can use it. And there's tie-down tracks. There's tie-down tracks on both sides of the bed, so you can kind of set up whatever you want to in here and tie it all down nice and neat. For lighting on the back of the truck, we're running, so there's a separate reverse light. This is on its own switch. These Baja Designs S1s, these are also in a work scene pattern, so it's a very wide pattern, and they're very, very bright, and they're up high. So if the client wanted to use this as like a chase light, he can simply just change this out to like an amber and run that on all the time. If he's in a convoy on dusty roads, people can see him from behind if there's a lot of dust, and you can kind of gauge distance from the vehicle in front of you when there's dust. Sometimes that can be hard to see, but you could use that for that. Right now we have it kind of set up as a rear work light, and it just lights up everything out back here behind you. Down here is a trim piece that I wanted to use a factory hitch on this for factory tow rating and things like that, but Bowen Customs makes this plate to fill in the gap, and we can have all of our harnesses and everything we make land in behind this nice and neat. we have a camera right here, the factory camera that we moved from the tailgate down onto this, right above where the license plate would be. And you have an unimpeded view of anything in behind you, and it comes up on the dash like it would from the factory. Factory towing hookup for your electrical, for trailer. These are your reverse lights. This comes with the bed. So these are hooked up to your reverse switch. These little Schrader valves are for the floating airbag in here. And it's nice to actually have these on the outside. I've had these plumbed inside the truck, but I've found that I like to be outside the truck when I put air in the airbags, so I can look at the truck and look at how the truck is standing. Instead of being inside the truck, just hitting a button, I can actually be out here controlling that myself and seeing how the truck is standing with either a load in the bed or a heavy trailer on, or both. So something kind of new for the skinny guy campers is the capability of using an awning on here. So we're running a 180 degree awning on this, because when the camper is open, it hangs out over the ground and you can't do a 270 awning. So you can kind of stand under a makeshift awning that way, but this is a 180 degree awning that opens up and it covers all the way up to the front of the cab and then all the way back to the back of the camper. And you can also put walls on that as well. But this tilts out of the way with these two pins. You just pull the pin, and you kind of need to do this anyway just to set your camper up. It just tilts out of the way like that, just enough to get in behind here to open and close your camper. And then when you go to close, after everything's done, you can just push this back and put your pins back in place, and you're good to go. Now, something that may look simple is actually very, very time consuming and very difficult to do, but it's worth it. This cabinet right here houses the house battery and the Oasis compressor. So this compressor can air 37-inch tires up without even trying, without breaking a sweat. If you have working air that you need to use, this truck has a volume tank to it. This truck can run air tools. It can fill up any size tire with air. It is never going to see the capacity, the max capacity of what this compressor will ever reach. And it looks like it's floating in the air. There's a bracket that's inside that's just above the battery. And I think this took about 25 hours or so to make. It was, I'll give my brother all the credit in the world for this. He built all of this, and it turned out extremely nice and out of the way and nicely secured. We're running the Battleborn lithium battery in this. It's a 100 amp hour lithium battery. And this battery is here solely for the compressor, but it can also charge the camper and any other power that would need to go into the bed itself. And it's also charging off of the truck. So for airing your tires up, in this cabinet here, we have the air chuck, quick connect air chuck right here, plumbed right off of the air compressor. There's a switch here for the lights that are inside this cabinet. This is where the red arc is mounted. Everything is kind of real easy to get to, but it's all storage down through this cabinet as well. With these trucks being a little larger, and this client has several younger kids, it's nice. We did the same thing with our truck. We have the power steps on here. So this one's running the amp research motorized steps, and it makes it very nice to be able to get kids and your wife with a nice dress on in and out of the truck without getting covered in mud every time they try to climb in and out of the truck. Because if you take one of these things on a trip and you end up having to go down a nasty road, everything gets covered in mud. So that is a really nice, clean way to get in and out of the truck. And there's a little light that comes on, and you can also just apply a little bit of a pressure to it, and it'll stay down once you have the door closed. So if you need to stand on here for the roof rack or whatever you need to do, clean it off, spray it off at the car wash, you can. And then it'll just shut itself back in. But it's very, very low profile. It goes all the way up under the truck and kind of hides the frame of the truck. So it kind of cleans the lines up a little bit. And if you did tag it on a rock or you needed to slide down over something, you can actually just replace the step. If you damage the step, you can just take it off there and put a new one on, worst case scenario. So I've never had to worry about that. And for the body armor on this truck, really all we had to do was a front bumper, because the rear is taken care of by the bed. But this bumper is an ADD, Addictive Desert Designs bumper. We tend to use these a lot. I really like the lines of them. It gives us some good real estate for lights and a winch and things like that. The it's got 4 LP9s on here. So we've got 2 amber in driving combo. We have 2 white in driving combo. And they're very effective together, obviously, but they're very effective on their own. I like to have lights that do multiple different things. So, and they're aimed slightly different. So that's kind of the beauty of having a light like that, is they have overlapping fields of light, but you can aim them wherever you want. Tilt them up and down, aim some high, aim some low, off to the left or right, whatever you want to do, you can do that individually with the light. They are switched in pairs, so the white ones are on one switch because there's a high and a low power, and the low power is the bottom 6 diodes, and then high power is all the diodes. But on high and low power, these diodes on the side all come on all the time, but you have an amber running light right here. So as you have approaching traffic, like I talked about before, this is amber in the same in all 4. So they look the same. Kind of coming down a little bit lower, we're running a ComeUP slimline winch. It's the newer one, and it is physically the same size as a 9,500 pound winch, but this one's the 12.5 thousand pound winch, and it's the largest one we can get, the strongest one we can get that will fit in this kind of real estate, and they've been working extremely nice for us. The control box we kind of just hid here. We don't put a light bar typically in here. You can do a full light bar in this, but we use this because for one, I like to be able to see the winch drum. If we ever have to use a winch, if a winch is in a bumper, I feel like you need to be able to see your drum without having to look in your grill or whatever it may be. You want to be able to look straight at that thing when you're using it and be able to see it. So it's unimpeded view of the winch drum. The control box we could mount in here, but the sonar, the cruise control sonar that is inside the factory bumper, is moved to right here. And these things can be very touchy. So this one actually works because we've got everything aimed and clearance the way it needs to be for all of your cruise control and adaptive cruise control and all that stuff to work like it should. This is just not dead center of the bumper. It's sitting right here, which just doesn't really affect anything. Moving down, we run a synthetic winch line on every winch we use. And on this one, we're running the Factor 55 Haas Fairlead and the Ultra Hook. I'm a huge fan of the Ultra Hook. You'll probably see that on every truck we build, mostly. It's many tools in one, and it allows you to get pretty complicated with a recovery effort if you needed to, just off of the one hook, because you can hook soft shackles into it, a 3/4 inch bow shackle. You can do all kinds of different things and have a true closed loop system when it comes to recovery on that hook. Now we're going to kind of go over the suspension, and the reason we're doing this a little bit different is because in any vehicle build, you should be looking at what the truck's got to do first and what your expectations are of the truck and how it's going to be driven, what it's got to carry. The suspension's job is to suspend the vehicle off of the ground and support its own weight. Then your shock's job is to control that once it's moving. So we wanted to go from top down on these builds and show you what the truck has to do first, and now we're going to go over some of the details of the suspension that make this truck handle so nice. So on this truck, we're running a Carli suspension, and it's typically, we don't usually advertise like a lift height or because we don't do lift kits or anything, but this is the Carli 4.5 inch system, which would equate to roughly 4.5 inches of lift. And we're running several options on this. We're running the Carli fabricated radius arms, which are designed to take a ridiculous amount of load. They're very, very strong and very well made. And it is also designed to clearance a larger tire as opposed to the factory radius arms. So that is one option that we can do on this Carli pin top system. But including the Carli springs, the limiting straps, and all of that stuff, we're running the SDI Easy Click electronic suspension on this. This would be what you would call the Carli pin top system, because the top of the shock has basically a bolt and a bushing that connects it to the frame of the truck, and that's called a pin top shock. And it is, so you could run the Carli suspension with like the King pin top, or it's advertised as the Carli pin top system. So this is the electronic version of the pin top system, and it works exceptionally well. There's a very easy to use interface on the inside of the cab from the driver's seat. that on the fly you can adjust. You can be sitting right there, stopped or moving in some aspects. Some of the selections on there you can be used as you're moving. But if you're sitting still, you can go through a lot of different menus and tune it the way you want to, given the terrain that you're driving on. So during this walk around, we're in deep sand in a lot of areas, and we found a few little rocky areas that we could go slow through, and I wanted to see how this would handle all of the weight that's in the back of this truck, because remember, we've got about 2,000 pounds or more in the bed of this truck, and you can't really expect setting inside a shock to work really well when a truck is empty and then loaded with over a ton in the back of it. You can't really expect that shock to be able to do exceptionally well in all settings without being able to adjust it. So, and to different, changing driving terrain features, as you're moving, the terrain can change. Well, this shock can change with that without you having to do anything. So it's a really nice option to have on this system. Now, there's more information. There's a lot of videos out there that get into the weeds about this system, and we won't bore you with all of that stuff on this particular walk around, but I would highly encourage somebody to go and look at CJC Off-Road or some of the other Carli's YouTube channel. Check out what you can find on that, and they go into a lot of detail about it. So for some of the other options in this Carli system, we're running the torsion sway bar in this one. The spring rate on that sway bar is really, really nice. The sway bars in these trucks are way too heavy from the factory, so having that on there allows your suspension to articulate like it naturally wants to. And it is a drastic difference. Just pulling out of a parking lot, you can feel it doesn't toss you around side to side in the cab like the factory sway bar would. We're also running the lower diff guard. It's like a skid plate for the front diff. That's a nice thing to have. You could hit anything, and that's gonna protect you to a certain extent. You can, if you bump into something, it'll protect you. If you hit anything hard enough, you're going to destroy something. But that's there because the diff cover itself is very thin metal, and you don't want to push that in against your ring gear. So having that down there in harm's way is much nicer to have than just the diff cover by itself. On that, you have the lower mount steering stabilizer that mounts to that. And then that, because sometimes when you put a larger tire on these trucks, they have a pull to them on the highway where you can adjust that lower steering stabilizer with gas pressure to offset some of that pull and to where the truck will drive straight. Even if the alignment is straight, the truck you have more rolling mass touching the ground, and it can have a radial pull on, dragging the truck to one side of the road, depending on what road you're driving on. But that helps with that, and helps with some of the feedback into the steering wheel as well.
All right.
Kind of touching back on the rear suspension now to complement the front. Like I said, this is a 1-ton truck, so we've got the factory load capacity, the factory capacity in the spring, but we have the Carli add a pack. So we've configured the spring set itself slightly different, which makes it handle really, really nice. And especially under a load, it just handles really nice with a trailer on it and a loaded bed. But it allows a lot more suspension travel in the back. It just kind of frees it up. So that's what we're running for the spring rate and the spring set. So for the rear shocks on this is a matching electronic system that you can actually tune separately front to rear. So if you have a lighter load in the back, you can soften that up, and you can dial up your input when you load something down on the back to where it creates a different kind of resistance in the back when you're moving. So it balances the truck a lot better once you have weight in it. And it's a great deal of suspension travel back here. And this truck's running factory gear ratio, and it doesn't really even feel the tire size at all. The truck is just butter smooth and has plenty of pep and power to it with the 37. And it's got the factory rear locker in it. So you can also, it's just an electric locker that you have right on the dash. So it's a super nice combination with the suspension system. So for rock lights under this truck, we did something a little bit different as well. We also put a set of Baja Designs S2 work scene lights under here. And we've got them shining on the ground in areas that you would need to be able to see if you had to drive over something. So we don't put rock lights in the underside of these trucks to shine on the suspension components like you kind of see driving up and down the road. we need to be able to see the ground, and what a vulnerable component would be. We want to know that we can see it really well so we don't crush something, or we know where we need to put our tires if we're driving over something. And since we're going from top down, the last thing in the outside of the truck is going to be the wheels and tires. So on this truck, we're running a 17 by 8.5 inch Method race wheel. This is the 703, and it's in the gray, like a titanium gray color. Now this has the bead grip technology in it, and I really, really like these wheels, the bead grip wheels, because I'm aired down in this truck right now to about 20 PSI. Running on the road, we're at about 60, and it has great handling characteristics. The Toyo 1250 17 Toyo MT is my favorite tire as far as a mud terrain tire goes, that you can put a heavy load on and you can get out here in the nastiest terrain that there is and have the tire really, really hold up well for you. We made it through a lot of soft sand out here, a couple sand hill climbs, and the truck did absolutely amazing, aired down to this pressure. Now, since we can't afford to do real world testing on zero air pressure unless we actually have a problem, but I can attest to the fact that the bead grip works. I have side loaded a tire hard enough to jam sand down inside it and will not break a bead loose unless it cuts the tire. So other than that, I mean, your bead of the wheel is going to cut the tire off before the bead fails. So side loading the tire is not an issue on popping a bead loose with this at all. And it's like that on the inside bead and the outside bead. So a typical bead lock, a mechanical bead lock, has a bead lock ring on the outside, which is very effective, but there's not usually an inside bead retention system. These work so well that it can make certain tire machines ineffective on trying to swap tires out. It can be very difficult. So it's a wheel that we've been using a lot. It's very lightweight, very strong, and it's a simple, clean look for us, and it kind of fits the bill for us. Hope you guys were able to get something out of this video. We've really enjoyed kind of getting this thing refined and working the way we really wanted it to. And check the rest of our stuff out at TAV LLC on Instagram, and obviously here on YouTube at Tactical Application Vehicles. Give us a call at the shop. TAVLLC.com is our website, and hopefully you'll tune in for the next one.